Hey there, people of the internet. Decided to come back and do something I don't usually do, and that's talk about a new anime series that's out at the moment, or at least coming out, so hopefully this will be a weekly thing, depending on how well I keep up to date on it, really. And I'm going to be talking about the first episode of Berserk, the 2016 series. So for background information, I've read a good amount of the manga, not all of it up to date, but a good amount of it. I've also seen the three recentish movies, and I've also seen the anime series from back in 1980 something. So I'm not going to say I'm an expert at Berserk, but I know a little bit about it anyway. And don't worry, I'm not going to talk about spoilers this half. I will be talking about spoilers later on down the line in this video, but I'll let you know when it's getting all spoilery. So, straight off the bat, I think it's worth mentioning that I found the episode a little bit clunky. I think it's because it tries to be an introduction episode and also a continuation, which makes it a little bit difficult in places. But I can't really get into that stuff until the spoiler section. But let's go with my problems about just the anime itself without getting into the spoiler stuff. I think it is worth talking about the animation. I know some people really like it and some people are really against. I guess I'm kind of more against it than I am for it. And for those that don't know, what they do in the show is they use CG for a huge amount of it, and then they also have 2D animation for the extreme close-ups, which I think is the most annoying thing, that they are still using 2D animation in it. And I know why they use the 2D animation. It's because they realize that their CG models cannot do the expressions on the extreme close-ups, so they have to go in for those really well-drawn, handcrafted 2D animation bits, so you can get the full range of expression. You can really convey the emotion of the character. And if anybody out there has seen Transformers Energon, Transformers Super Link, they kind of did the same stuff there as well. It was mostly a CG show with human painted characters, which I think in this idea would have actually been better, but regardless. And then in some episodes, not all of them, but then they'd have these really nicely done bits of animation for, again, the expression or the more intense stuff that would happen in the episodes. So I find this jumping back and forth between the 2D and the 3D very jarring, and I'm not a fan of it at all. And also the actual just animation on the CG bits feels really big and heavy and clunky. Like, Guts will move very similar to a Terminator. He doesn't move like a human being. And I'm not saying CG shows can't look good. I mean, I'm a really big fan of Transformers Prime. And the Green Lantern show from when it was out was really good as well. And they were showing how those could be done well. This is not. This just doesn't feel cheap. It just doesn't feel good. It feels a lot more early 2000s CG animation, I think, than 2016 kind of CG animation should be. And I'm not really sure what the point is behind it, because if the whole show's not CG, then why make it partially a CG show? Also, a good part of the intro sequence is 2D animation as well, with only bits being CG, so it shows the potential of what the show could have been, and it makes me sad. But anyway, back onto the actual episode. It is clunky in places, I think, because it is an episode 1. I've seen articles on Kotaku saying it outshines the anime, and I'm like, well, that's one episode. It's too hard. It's too early to say if it outshines that at this point in time, I think. I think that's Kotaku being Kotaku and overblown nonsense again. It is an episode that I think if you haven't seen it, you could probably jump onto. I personally would recommend going back and watching either the movies or the anime, because they kind of tell the same story for the most part, with bits added and taken away and whatnot. But to get the full context of what's going on in the story, it's probably better to watch that stuff before just jumping on here. So I do look forward to see where the show goes in the future, because it opens up a lot of avenues for what's going to come, hopefully. And I hope the animation gets a bit better, but I have a feeling it's going to stay around the same amount. The texturing on the CG models is actually quite good. It's just the animation that really pulls the CG itself down. So that's just the quick stuff out of the way with. Now talking about spoilers, so if you don't want to be spoilt on the episode, then, click away now. I've given you your warning, so okay, here we go. So we kind of have a bit of a rehashing of the very first episode of Berserk, the actual anime series, where Guts goes into a bar, beats up some thugs, and saves someone. In the anime, they changed it from the original character Puck, who's the little fairy person, to a little girl. And in this retelling, it's back to the manga version where he's saving Puck. Not by him wanting to save Puck, but just because they're in his way. But we also have the introduction of this character, who I can't remember his name, but I know he's important to the story. It's been a while since I've read the manga. And after that scuffle, Guts just kind of wanders off into the forest. Now, in the original anime and in the manga, if I remember correctly, those thugs were part of the Snake Demon's gang, and then he fights a Snake Demon because that's who he was after, and then he kills that Snake Demon. Whatcha! But in this, he has a scuffle with them, he leaves, and then they try and chase him down. And this is where it then skips to the end of the very first manga, technically, where Guts is going through the forest and he meets up with these two. And for those of you who've read the manga, you know it doesn't end well for them. And obviously you've seen the show, so again, you know it doesn't end well for them. So the guys from the bar earlier want to go and chase Guts and teach him a lesson and whatnot. And they see him find all the undead skeleton things that got rid of the nice people that helped him out. And then they're eaten by a giant tree demon, which then Guts has to fight and kill. I guess because they wanted to have a good action sequence, but the problem with this action sequence was, the animation made it a little bit disjointed for me. I couldn't tell in some parts what was going on. I mean, I could figure it out. I could see A and C and this smear in the middle, and I assumed it was a B, but it was only a vague assumption because there was A, there was C. I guess B has to be in the middle there. And then right at the end of the episode, we have the introduction, well, reintroduction, because they were at the very beginning of the episode as well, of three characters who are quite, well, at least one character is very big in the Berserk universe. And that's Azan, Serpico, and Farnes. Now, I'm pretty sure I butchered all those names, and I'm sure the people in the comments will let me know if I get responses, but I haven't heard their names, at least not for a very long time, so pronunciation, I've no idea, I'm just taking a guess. So you can kind of see why it's a bit messy. The beginning of the episode, you see the remnants and the remains of what happened at the end of the movie, then you jump to the beginning of the first manga, then you miss out the middle chunk of the manga, and you skip to the end part of the manga, and then you skip from the end part of the first manga to... Oh, God, I really cannot remember when those three were introduced, but they were after the Golden Ark saga, which was a lot of mangas, and then it was sometime after that as well. So it's bit here, bit here, bit here, bit here, and when you know a little bit, you're like, ooh, this is a bit messy, but I understand why they've done it. So is Berserk worth watching? If you're a fan of the show, sure, well, you're probably going to watch it regardless. Is the animation bad enough to say you shouldn't watch it ever again? I'd say no, because it's in episode 1, and if you're really that big of a Berserk fan, yes, the animation may annoy you, I get that, but support the show, otherwise we might not get any more Berserk. The problem, I suppose you could argue, is if we support this, then we might get more of this Berserk, which is not something some people would want. But I would say some's better than nothing, I guess. And as I mentioned before, it's an okay point for people to jump on who've never seen the show. You are going to be missing out some stuff, but then you have the option at least of going back and rewatching stuff. At this point in episode 1, I mean, we might get like episode 2, episode 3, episode 4, and you're like, well, you should have watched the earlier stuff. Sorry, mate. So at this point in episode 1, after the first one, sure, it's easy enough to jump onto. Might that change in the future? Maybe. Probably. Who knows? Anyway, guys, I hope this has been entertaining enough. I haven't used any video footage because I don't want copyright claims, so I thought stills would be probably the best way to get around it. If you found this entertaining or informative or whatever, please let me know. Let me know your thoughts, because I'm sure there are people who really like the CG animation and some people that really hate it. I can see why people... I can kind of understand why people would hate it. I can't understand why people would really love it, like, because it's not the best. So if you really do love the animation, please tell me what you think is so good about it. Maybe I'm missing something. I don't know. And I will catch you hopefully next week for episode 2. So catch you later, peeps. And Guts, sword, big metal thing. Ka-kunk.